everybody, it's Amy Rich with amyrich.net. I'm here in my basement studio ready to share with you some really cool products. Something new that Stampin' Up! Came up with this year in the new 2021 to 2022 annual catalog was a hybrid embossing folder. And I'm going to use that today during my project that I made with the Art in Bloom bundle. The Art in Bloom bundle is so amazing because Stampin' Up! Has done something new. We have come up with a hybrid embossing folder, and that means that you can use it with the dies to both cut and emboss an image all at the same time. So here's our embossing folder that we're going to use today, and then the dies that coordinate. This big one will cut out all three of these flowers here in the Art in Bloom stamp set. We're going to start with a piece of FLIRTY Flamingo cardstock and then some FLIRTY Flamingo ink. And we're going to take the E-block on which I have put those three flowers. We're going to ink that up. And then I want to kind of see how the flowers are lined up on the embossing folder, so as not to cause myself issues later. So it lines up about like this, so that I'm just stamping them tone on tone. Now what we need is our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. We're going to use the machine, like I said, to both emboss and cut what I just stamped. So the first thing we're going to do is open up our embossing folder and then take our die and just lock it into place on those flowers. See, it doesn't shift around. Like I said, it kind of locks itself into place. Then I will insert my FLIRTY Flamingo cardstock, and then using a bright light, I'm going to do my best to line up the lines of the stamp with the lines in the embossing folder. And once I'm satisfied, I will close that so it's ready to go through the machine. We want to make sure when we're using our platform to use the layering with the 3D embossing folder, because that's what this embossing folder is. So we have our plate 1, and then our folder with our cardstock in the middle, and then plate 4. And then we're going to run that through the machine. Once I get it through once, I like to go back the other way to make sure it gets a nicely cut floral image. So what we are left with then is our embossed image, and then the die cut them out all at the same time. Fantastic. Now for our card today, I'm only going to use one of these flowers. So I'm going to set the other two flowers aside. I think I'll use this one, the biggest one. When I made this card for a swap, it was nice to have all three of the flowers so that I could cut out fewer and still get 3 images, if that makes sense. Run it through the machine fewer times. Now for this card that I'm going to make today, we also are going to do a lattice technique using 1/2-inch strips of designer series paper. The paper that I'm going to use today is called Pattern Party, and it is actually a host item in the 2021 to 2022 annual catalog. So you can see all of the amazing imagery of the DSP, and it has a colorful side and then a black and white side with every piece. So it's cool to see all of the great designs. I especially like the black and white. And then of course, all of the colors that are in the DSP down here at the bottom. We're going to start with a piece of 1 5/8 by 5 basic white cardstock. And if you can see as I bring this up closer, it is marked every 1/2 inch down both sides of the cardstock. I'll bring in my silicone crafting sheet just in case we get glue where we don't want it. When we start the lattice, I'm going to begin with our black black and white side of our DSP. When we use these lines now on our cardstock, we need to think in diagonals. So if we're going to put the black and white cardstock starting up here in the corner, we want to go down at a diagonal. Then we're going to skip a section, go again, and down at the diagonal. So let me just show you how that works. Just using some multi-purpose glue, I'm just going to put adhesive on the diagonal from that upper section to the second section on the other side. And I'm actually going to do all of my adhesive so that I don't have to get my glue back in my hand until the next section is ready. Then we'll start at the top and fit this into the corner, and it's okay if it goes off the edge. I cut them long enough at, I think, 2.5 inches so that they would make sure to be long enough and just go off the edges that we'll trim up later. So one of these black and white pieces goes in each of those sections. So you will need 5 strips of black and white DSP total. Now you could use any designer series paper for this. I just really liked how these turned out. Now for the next ones, I'm going to use the flip side and have that really cute rainbow stripe. So now we're going to use the bottom edge of the strip on the left-hand side, and then we're going to go up at the diagonal the other direction. So when we start the first one, it's going to go over to the corner. So we don't want to put adhesive way over here because that would get in the way. So what we want to do, this bottom part is going to go up to the corner. So it's a lot of it for that first one is going to go off the edge. See how it's just gone at the diagonal there. The bottom is the same way. So let me do that one next. So we want to go, yeah. So we want to go at that corner up to this corner. So we're using those 1/2 inch marks with our 1/2 inch strips of paper and just making that lattice or the folded ribbon look. All right, so now we're going to always overlap the black and white piece with the rainbow piece. So I'm going to put my adhesive again at the diagonal for each strip. Now we'll come back in with our colored strip, and we want to make sure to just line up these corners on both sides. Okay, so we're going to line up this striped DSP with those 2 corners of the black DSP. Hopefully by seeing it visually, it will help you understand that a little bit better. When I first found this idea online, it wasn't to the sizes that I wanted for my card. So I revamped it, resized it so that it would look like this. Now it kind of looks like a hot mess right now. So what you have to do is flip it over and then start trimming off the excess. So I'm going to start on an end, get the black and white off, and then just trim it off. This card has a lot of different aspects to it, a lot of things to learn. And I think my goal here for you is not just to necessarily get you to want to exactly make this card, but it gets you thinking about different techniques you'd like to try. Perhaps you like the art in bloom flowers and how that hybrid embossing folder works. Perhaps you like the lattice ribbon folding technique, which I think is absolutely fabulous. It looked like a hot mess, and now it just looks really sweet, doesn't it? Now let's get the rest of this put together. I'm going to start with my 5.5 by 8.5 Pool Party cardstock. And I've actually scored it in half, but now I'm going to take 2 inches off of the end. And this will allow for a little peekaboo effect on the right hand side. So I'm going to use my bone folder to get that nicely scored. And we're going to start working our way from the inside out. This piece of Flirty Flamingo cardstock is going to go inside. So we'll start with that, and you can see the measurements here on the screen. And then I'm going to take this piece of basic white cardstock and adhere that to the left-hand side of the inside of my paper. Then we'll take the lattice next, and that's going to go on the right-hand side. So we'll leave little borders to make it look super cute with the Flirty Flamingo peeking through. And then when I adhere this to the inside, that lattice will peek out on the right-hand side. I'm going to close this and make sure that I get the white covered, because all I want showing is that Flirty Flamingo border right here. So make sure to get that white covered. Oh, so cute. Now we'll work on the outside, and taking a piece of that same designer series paper, we're going to use the black and white side. I love the coordination of all the products that Stampin' Up! Has. It makes it really easy to make a project that looks professional. So we're adhering that then. This piece is 1 3/4 by 5, and then 1 7/8 by 5 1/8 for the Flirty Flamingo. Again, you can see those dimensions on the screen, and they are in my blog post about this project as well. Cute so far. Next, I'm going to take 2 of the Label Me Fancy dies, or punches. So I punched the 2 out of basic white cardstock, and now I'm going to layer them together. So I'm just going to take a little bit of liquid glue, and then we're going to layer these so that the straight ends here line up together just perfectly. It just lengthens our label a little bit. Then bringing back in the Flirty Flamingo ink pad and a stamp from the Art in Bloom stamp set that says, "You're a rare find." We're going to stamp that all the way at the bottom of this label right here. And then another thing I've done in advance is I've taken Granny Apple Green ink on Granny Apple Green cardstock to stamp this leaf. And then of course the dies have dies to cut that leaf out, which made it super easy to put together. So now I'm going to adhere our leaf over here on the side, and I'm going to let it stick off the edge. And the idea here now as I add my flower is to cover up that seam of those labels. So we'll do that, but we're going to pop that up with a few dimensionals. Making sure to remember to cover up the seam of those punches. One last thing I want to do is add a little bit of our glitter ribbon, and I'm going to be adding this to the left-hand edge here, but I want this ribbon to come out from under. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little adhesive in the middle and fold it in half. And then I'm going to put a little adhesive up here and attach that like so. And then we're going to add, like I said, a couple dimensionals, but only on the left-hand side. So when you flip it over, it should be on the side with the leaf sticking out over here. And once we add those pieces, then we can pop that up. Oh my gosh, so cute. Then we'll trim those ribbon edges, and we've got ourselves an adorable card. Thanks for joining me today as I showcase some really fun new products. What a great way to make some really unique projects. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, and if you have, I would love you to subscribe to my channel. So click below to subscribe so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks for joining me, everybody.